Watch David try to walk up the stage, not at all like the act that you just saw. Dave Rigotti, I hate you. Thanks so much for having me follow that amazing act. Thanks for warming us up. Thanks for being a tough act to follow. Welcome, everybody, to PLGTM. We are going to talk about why PLG is an inseparable part of go-to-market motion. And before we do that, I guess before even I talk about this, one thing I'll say is that folks say that when a technology is mature or a concept is mature, that you don't have trade shows and conferences about it anymore. So I don't want to say that we're immature. I think that we are just getting started. And the balance of this presentation is going to explain why that is and why PLG is so important. On the way to that, let's take a look at why you're all here, or at least why I think you're all here. Why is there such interest in product-led growth? There's a whole variety of reasons. I'll just go and build these out. It's about driving awareness, much easier and hopefully much faster than a traditional top-down or sales-led motion would do on its own. It's about showing the value of what you offer to your users and your buyers, to a variety of people in an account. It's about doing all these things, but most of all, it's about speed. What most people hope to achieve, or at least what I think that they hope to achieve through a PLG go-to-market motion, is to make the sales cycle go faster. Let the buyers buy the way that they want, have the experience they want, because we all know very well your buyers don't want to talk to you. At least they don't want to talk to you right away. And Gartner has a trove of numbers about how little time or the buyers spend with you. That's all true. There's a number that says about 17% of the buyer's time is actually with their vendor. But that's a buyer who may be making multiple purchases, so that 17% is sliced even smaller. So they really don't want to talk to you, not right away. They don't want to meet with you. They don't want to have to jump through the hoops of seeing demos and being handed off from an SDR to an AE to whomever. And so PLG is about speed. Now, I'm not discounting the use of the PLG motion to go after new segments with easy, quote-unquote, viral products where PLG is simple. I know it's not always that simple, but it's certainly easier if you're Slack or DocuSign or Miro or Mural, or products that are inherently viral or collaborative, where value builds the more people you put into it. That's easy, but what about harder products? What about more complicated products? Well, it's about those too. Now, on the way to that, we have all borne witness to the most successful product-led product, or product as part of a product-led motion in history, perhaps outside of empanadas at Costco and its ChatGPT. So I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but good grief, 400 million users on its way to a valuation after a next infusion of a huge amount of cash of something like $300 billion. And so this has been tremendously successful, and it's opened the doors to a whole variety of other AI-infused, AI-native products that are also not only having success through PLG, but need a product-led motion to show their value. I'll talk more about that as we go, but it's not just AI products. It's not just AI that this is about. Another category that's had tremendous success through PLG is interactive demo. You'll hear me talk a bunch about interactive demonstration or demo automation. I'm team interactive demo, you may be team demo automation, I don't care. We're talking about the same thing. But these products that you see here all have free offers, and they've all been tremendously successful as a result of letting people see the value of what they do early on. We are in the third wave of PLG. So back in 2014, when the term was introduced, it was largely about B2C. For the next bunch of years, and say more recently between about 2021 and last year or so, or now, it was more about B2B and B2B companies trying to succeed in the motion. This third wave is where we get it right, and where people are going to put in place the mechanisms and the processes and the resources to do that. But let's talk about how we get there. Let's talk about where we are in terms of companies like yours and what I see out when I talk to clients. And by the way, just so you know what I do for a living, it's not all fun and games and talking. All of my clients at Gartner are technology companies of every size 0 through billions of dollars. And I talk to them every day about go-to-market motion, about PLG, about a whole variety of topics. And when we took a look a year ago and we asked, how important is PLG to you as part of your go-to-market motion, 87% of clients said, it's a really important thing for us. So of course I wonder, what is it like this year? It's not much different, 86%. So I'm confident that most tech companies think that PLG is a really important thing to get right. 3 years ago, I said that 90% of tech companies would use PLG tactics in their go-to-market. So I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about the high 80%. But I'm going to say today that PLG tactics are non-negotiable. You must, and I don't care what sort of product you have. I don't care how complicated it is. I don't care if your audience is business users, devs, whomever. PLG tactics are a non-negotiable part of go-to-market. You need to do this. But it's not going to be the same for everyone. And despite the fact that I think it's non-negotiable, clearly not every client believes me yet. So I'm going to let you into something I do because I don't have much of a life very often. Welcome to what I call my personal hell. And so when I talk to clients, a client schedules an inquiry with me, hey, we want to talk about PLG and how we make a PLG motion work for us. What I do is if I'm not that familiar with their product or products in their category, I do this little exercise where I'll look at them, I'll look at a bunch of competitors, and I'll try to figure out from their website, are they making things easier for the buyer? And quick hint, PLG to me is mostly about reducing friction. Forget all the, the glorious parts of the motion and PQLs and how we make that all work. The simplest way to think about it is we want to reduce friction between ultimately the buyers of the product and us, make it easier for them. And so this was a case where, and I'm not showing you the names of the companies because I don't say it's shameful, but it's interesting. You see all the no's up there? There's not one of these companies that's making things easier for their buyers. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have a free trial or freemium, but you got to do something. You've got to reduce the friction. So not everybody is there yet. Let's play a little game of Jeopardy. The answer is, what's the question? Shout it out. These are conversion rates. Give that gentleman something. I don't know. These are conversion rates, 10 to 15% conversion out of free trial to paying, and 2 to 6% in freemium. So we're not tearing the cover off the ball. Sorry, sports analogy. We're not incredibly amazing. Now, I've seen plenty of companies do better than this. I see lots of companies do worse than this. But we can all be better at this, and that's part of the third wave, is we need to be better at this. And that's why, just to, again, give you an idea of the kind of things that clients are talking to us about or me about, it's questions that are, well, all over the PLG map, as it were. So, and they range from, please help us with our strategy, but more tactically, should we offer a free trial? Should we offer freemium? What's the difference between the two? Should we have a community edition? If we do, how do we know what people are doing? So on and so forth. Pricing, packaging. And this is all exacerbated by GenAI, by the infusion of GenAI into pretty much everybody's products. GenAI is the new Lemony Fresh of technology products. I say that jokingly, but I'm a happy user of several products infused with GenAI, so it's magical, it works, and it's everywhere. But it's forcing even more companies to think about, how do I get my users and buyers to understand what the heck we do? Because we're not all lucky enough to be OpenAI or ChatGPT. Most of our products don't have a time to value of 30 seconds. Sorry, that's just the way it is. Some are fast. I've seen products 7 minutes. That's neat. But more often, it takes longer to figure out why this thing is good and ultimately why should I buy it. And that's where the notion of what I call product experiences comes into play. Because as you saw on that really hard to see Excel spreadsheet that I had up before, there are products that don't lend themselves, and that was a class. There are products that don't lend themselves to a self-service motion. And those tend to be, generally speaking, more complicated products that are for complicated organizations. What do I mean by that? The larger the deal size, the longer the time to value, the less likely you are to be in a self-serve motion. That's not magic, it's not secret, that's just how it works. There are plenty of products that, or market segments that you can sell them into that are to small companies with small price tags and a single buyer. That's easy. It's easier PLG. But most of the world doesn't act like that. And so what we need are product experiences that show the value of what we offer to our users, to our buyers, so that they can advocate on behalf of us when it's time for them to go buy it. And my belief is that, and this is a projection out to 2030, that companies will have, or 90% of companies will have multiple product experiences as part of their go-to-market, and that's up from something like 20% today. Who's leading it today? Mostly the technical products that are focused on IT operations, devs, those sorts of folks. It's there that you see combinations of free trial, interactive demo, sandbox, stuff like that. But more and more, this is going to happen, and it needs to happen. Why does it need to happen? I'm sure that all of you that are marketing and selling products find that you've got to show them at some point to your customers. And that takes a variety of different forms. In the dark blue on this chart are the things that you have to do in person, or they can't be self-serve. So at some point in a buying process, buyer is going to say, look, I need to see this work with my data. I need to see it work with my parameters, my environment, and you need to show me contextually in my world that this is going to work. Followed usually by a POC, we call it proof of value, whether you call it POC, POV, one of those things. Those are done by people. But everything in the light blue can and likely should be self-serve to a degree. Now, I'm not saying that you should never do a human-led demo. Plenty of opportunity for it, but again, in the spirit of making things simple for your buyers and speeding up the sales cycle and not annoying the heck out of them, you've got to make things self-serve. And an important major way to do that is with interactive demo technology. I could go through this list of the amazing benefits of interactive demo. And if you read anything I do on LinkedIn, you can see I'm a huge fanboy of the technology. It's not, I don't have to be. I'm a fan of things that work for our clients. I'm going to show you why I'm a fan on this slide. Turns out, our buyers tell us that interactive demos, to them, are the most important pieces of content on the website. I saw this data and I said, I feel seen. I've been talking about this for 3 years and I was right. Amazing. Anyway. But this is pretty cool stuff. So more valuable than a free trial, more valuable than case studies. I'm not saying you get rid of all this other stuff. You need to do all of this, but I implore you, you need to look at this technology if you're not already. Now, remember, we're talking about product experiences, so it's not just the interactive demo on your website. There are ways that you can show off and ways that you should show off your product throughout the buying process. Now, if we had another hour, I could walk you through the myriad of ways that you can create demos in the variety of technologies from the 40 to 100 vendors that are in this space, but we don't have time like that. Instead, what I will share with you is, so there's lots of ways to make interactive demos or lots of ways to automate demos, and they range in terms of the fidelity that they offer, the fidelity of the application that you're representing. And each of those ways of creating a demo has its place throughout the buying process. So one message I have for you is first of all, you should be considering interactive demo. If I haven't made that clear, I'm making it clear now. But if you are considering it, you've got to look at how it works, where it works throughout the buying process, throughout the buyer journey, and you can apply different technologies to reach different points of it. Now think about this in the context of AI. Remember, everything's infused with AI. We're trying to get our AI products into market. And the challenge that GenAI brings us is how do you market and sell something that only 28% of your audience understands? And I've seen a variety of numbers. I've seen this number, I've seen under 30%, I've seen less than a third, but it's all generally about the same. If you ask people, do you know what an agent is? Do you know the difference between an agent and an agentic application? Or you can work with prompts, you can work with a co-pilot, you can have agents, you can have agentic, and people just don't know exactly what it is, for the most part. Now, I'm in the Valley, you're all tech folks. I bet it's higher than 30% in this room, but among your buyers, the knowledge level isn't great. So how do you fix that? Well, you've got to show the value of what you're doing. You've got to show somebody this is what the product can do in order to allay some of their fear, remove some of the risk, show them the value of what you offer. So here's parenthetically, I hate showing interactive demo examples with screenshots because it kind of defeats the whole purpose. Forgive me. But here's a screenshot of an interactive demo. It happens to be for a product from Siemens that is an IoT predictive maintenance product. And if you saw it in motion, what it would be doing is it's telling a narrative story. It's explaining why it's a neat thing and showing exactly what's happening. In this case, it's showing a translation for somebody in a different geography that needs to see the data and results. So that's one example. Another example is what Salesforce is doing with Agentforce. And so they are fulfilling this dream of mine of multiple product experiences where they start off with interactive video as a way to not only tell the story for buyers, but also let people self-qualify in or out, followed up with an interactive demo to show, okay, this is what Agentforce looks like. This is what building an agent in Agentforce looks like. And then led to an actual experience, because at some point, somebody with technical know-how actually needs to try it out and wants to try it out and see, is building an agent here better than building it somewhere else? So a couple of examples of fulfilling multiple product experiences. GenAI is also changing the way that the interactive demo market looks now and will look into the future. So currently, there's a whole variety of GenAI capability that's being built or built into these products. And it ranges from script generation to storyboard generation to translation. Synthetic data, I think, is one of the unsung important elements that GenAI brings to interactive demo. So imagine you're an SE, or you've got the totally overworked, underpaid, underappreciated trove of sales engineers, and they spend part of their lives spinning up applications and filling them with data so that they can do demos, and they can do a gazillion demos a week, and it's never enough. Imagine if you could hit a button and that demo was filled with data about a particular vertical market, and 10 minutes later, you say, oh, now I have to give that demo not to an oil and gas company, but to a healthcare company. I hit a button, boom, data changes, context changes, demo works. Pretty cool stuff. So that's an important piece of this puzzle, but where it is heading is pretty cool. So there are already applications where I can feed product information, a video, URL to my website, and I generate a demo. It's a screen capture demo, but it's a demo. It may have guidance and so on. Here's what it does. But as we go forward, this is going to get more and more sophisticated. So I will be able to dynamically generate a demo. Maybe it'll actually run against a sandbox environment, and it will answer questions that people ask. And again, some of this works today, but a year from now, the face of this market is going to be very, very different, where we will have dynamically generated demos that correspond with your buyers, with your users, answer questions, spin up new demos, deliver product information, help buyer enablement. It's a wonderful world. So that's where that's heading. That doesn't mean that we don't need marketing and sales. That was the mistake in the first wave of PLG back in the dark days of 2020. We don't need salespeople, we don't need marketing. Untrue. So we know we still need salespeople. We know that we still need to attract people to the product to get them to see it. Actually, funny side note, had a call with a client 2 days ago. And they said, we have a PLG motion, and how come we're not making $1 billion by now? So, well, how many people are coming to your website? Not a whole lot. Whoops. Okay, so still got to drive awareness. Anyhow, so product doesn't sell itself, product doesn't market itself. It turns out that one of the areas in which companies have not done a great job is the sales approach. So remember, we're talking about the products that don't close themselves, don't sell themselves, need a seller to get involved because of the price tag, because of the complexity, or simply because the users of the product are not the buyers of the product. PLG is predominantly about the users of the product, but most of the time, they're not the ones that are making the buying decision. They're going to advocate on behalf of the product, hopefully, if it's good, but they're not the ones making the buying decision. But it turns out that most companies are pretty bad at the timing of the sales approach. So 41% of the time, it's just clearly wrong. And wrong might mean they just don't, for whatever reason. And I talk to enough companies where the challenge, our salespeople just don't want to do that because cannibalism, we're afraid, et cetera, not good. So not approaching is wrong, but also, and this happens to me, I sign up for lots of free trials. Again, welcome to my hell. I sign up for many, many, many free trials, and it's unfortunately often the case that the second I fill out that form and hit enter, I get a phone call. Defeating the purpose. So anyway, timing is bad, and even in the kind of yellow area, the caution area, so it's not awful after the free trial or in this case, free trial ends to be contacted. But another thing I do is when I sign up for free trials, I often don't do anything. I don't use the product. And you would be shocked at the number of times that I get an email at the end of the trial. How was your trial experience? It was awesome, right? No, it was not. So anyway, we need to be better at this. How can we get better at this? Remember, PLG is predominantly about attracting users to see the value of the product to them so that they can advocate on its behalf to the buyers of the product. So we have this combination of user value and buyer value that have to be shown, have to be found, and that add up to whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it product-led sales, if you want to call it hybrid go-to-market, either way, these two pieces have to come together, and where the sellers earn their commission in this model is translating that advocacy and the value that the users saw to the value that the buyers need to understand so they can build a business case and so they can write the metaphoric check. This means that there's a bunch of data, a bunch of information that's part of this puzzle that sellers need to have. And we are now in the age where we're starting to call this data signals. You'll see examples of it out there. I'm sure people are pretty familiar at this point with signal-based X, marketing, sales, and so on. And so while the product data, product analytics, metering, the data or the signals associated with the products are clearly important and some of the best intent data you can get because there's no better first-party data than, hey, they tried my product, they used it, they saw value from it, fantastic. But there's a host of other signals that the buyers are throwing off. And it's everything from the visits to the website, to the document downloads that we all know about, to the social posts, to the announcements from the company of we're hiring 100 people, or we're investing in this sort of infrastructure, all of that. It's a combination of intent, first-party, second-party, third-party data. These are all signals, and they're all important, but there's a lot of them. How do you manage that? There's a class of application we decided to name customer intelligence. And so customer intelligence applications do this magic in the orange spot, which is they aggregate all the signals. They figure out who they're from resolving the individual up to the account, and so on. They stack them, and so prioritizing, okay, of the 100 signals we got, which ones mean something, and what do they mean? What action should we take as a result of that? And then let's actually conduct that action. This is something that so many companies have either built or tried to build themselves, and stitched together from a combination of the applications generating the data, to data warehouses or CDPs, to reverse ETLing into a thing or to a Tableau-generated list of stuff for a seller. It doesn't work, it doesn't scale, it's inflexible, it's too hard. This is the application world that fixes that. Now, there's a whole bunch of companies that are realizing that this is a thing. And so the customer intelligence applications are noted in orange on the bottom. And there's a lot of flow, let's say, among these different categories. And in part, as a result of the infusion of AI and GenAI, they're all kind of heading in the same direction. And just even from a marketing standpoint, you can see it. 6 Sense talks about the Signalverse. ZoomInfo just introduced Go-to-Market Studio last week. Looks a lot like Clay. It's interesting. Anyway, this space is very active, it's very exciting, but it answers a problem that I see continually from my clients, and that is, in spite of the investments that they've made in ABM and intent data and a trove of other applications, their sellers still don't know who to focus on today, now, or why, or what to do about it. And so that's where this is headed. It's because of this panoply of signals that AI needs PLG. So if I'm coming to market with an AI application or an AI-infused application or whatever it is, you've got to show the value of it, but you also have to be able to navigate or thread the needle, as you put it so eloquently before, between the users and the buyers. But PLG needs AI because of all this data, all of the signals, all the stuff that has to be processed in order for it to work. Last thing I want to talk about is where I think a lot of people are going to be focusing going forward, and that's in expansion. We mostly think and talk about PLG with respect to customer acquisition, but it should work at least as well, if not better, for existing customer expansion. Why? Because if you have a SaaS product, it's fish in a barrel. You've got the users there. They're using the product. You should know what they're doing with it. Are they seeing value from it? Turns out, just to show you some numbers around value management, so in a different parallel universe of what I do every day, I also work in the value management space. So 38% of folks that use free trials continue to use them so that they can create a business case for what they want to buy. 75% of buyers ask their vendors for help in building that business case. And 98% of buyers, virtually all buyers, are trying to figure out somehow if they're getting value from what they bought. Now, that shouldn't be surprising. After all, people that are making the purchase want to know if it's working, are they getting value from it? Is it delivering the outcomes? But they need help. They need your help. Customer organizations are bad at trying to figure this out for a whole variety of reasons. They may not have the data, or they don't have the data, the product analytics data, all of the data surrounding customer success, all of the signals internally that are happening, all of that. Or simply, the person or the function that bought the thing isn't the one that's using it. The person that was the champion isn't the one implementing, and so on. So you need to help them. But unfortunately, there's really not a notion of a product qualified lead, which we always talk about, or I hope we always talk about it, on the customer acquisition side. There's not a similar notion or a similar conversation on the owning side, and there should be. There should be a set of feature consumption, engagement, a whole variety of other signals tied to use cases that have metrics associated with them that you could infer based on that usage and adoption according to use case, and the metrics that hopefully you pre-established, is that account seeing value from that purchase? So the good news is we're starting to see it. And there are, again, screenshots up here from companies like ServiceNow, from ecosystems, from Clay, you can see out there, and Mutiny, all of whom are doing really neat things around showing the customers that they are getting value from their products. And I think that this is going to be a huge area of focus. Certainly will be for me. If you're wondering what I'm going to be doing for the next year, it's going to be a lot of that. I think from a lot of you as well. With that, thank you very much. I'm going to hand it off to the next.